And I'm excited to hear about your work, hear about your meditation practice if you have one.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, definitely.
cool,
Um,
cool.
I'm ready. Let's dive in.
Let's dive in. Exactly. So I'll probably do an introduction on my own,
Perfect.
just gauging from the stuff that you gave me, going from your website.
Okay.
But we can start in by talking about what you do. Like, what is a holistic health coach?
Um, so I kind of define it as looking at the whole person rather than, if you work with like a nutritionist or a trainer, you're just going to be focusing on fitness or the food, and that really leaves out a lot of pieces. Um, so it's almost sort of like having a life coach that knows the healthy stuff too. And
Right.
so we get to, right now, I'm actually focusing on corporate wellness. So very busy people that just need a little extra push. But it is, I kind of think of like 12 different aspects of lifestyle. So you're talking about sleep and maybe even relationships and, talking more about like, well, why are you feeling that way? Kind of like getting into the emotions of it. Because I think a lot of people don't realize like the gut brain connection. There's so many things like, okay,
Right.
so what are you actually eating? And you're feeling this way because, and so we kind of get to the root of the issue.
Nice. It's amazing how, and I used to be a personal trainer before I became a meditation teacher.
Oh, cool.
Um, so I totally understand like nutrition, but the thing that totally amazes me is how little people understand what their food does to their body, not just from
Yeah.
a physical standpoint, but the mental aspect, the emotional aspect, and how it all ties in together. So I'm glad there are people like you that are shedding light on that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're one of those trainers that did know that stuff. So that's
Yeah, I was lucky.
awesome. Very cool.
What, and it's funny, even with all that's going on, I do part-time work for a, nonprofit here that provides health insurance and a variety of other safety avenues for commercial fishermen here on the East Coast.
Okay.
And but I get to work from home for the days that I'm here, and eating healthy has been a challenge, as you might expect.
Oh yeah, I bet. I bet. I think it has been for everyone, even like the so-called healthy people.
Oh yeah. Well, for me, it's not so much that I'm eating like crap food; it's that I'm eating a ton of healthy food. So,
Well, yeah,
which is
there is that balance. Even I've noticed I'm like eating carrots really fast, and I'm like, what am I doing? Come on, Kerry. It's like that mindlessness. It's like the opposite of meditation, right? It's like,
right.
okay. But I think I've also noticed that and read a lot about it that like certain distractions are actually a positive right now. And I think it's just like, again, it comes back to balance. Well, like, how much are you actually allowing yourself to do that? You know?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I actually had to issue an apology to my listeners because when all this started, I was like, much like everybody, I said, now you've got an absolutely awesome time to do whatever you need to do, like learn something new, read something new.
Oh,
And I was totally coming for ego, thinking like that's what I want to do. But then I had to kind of rethink it. I'm like, dude, there are probably some people that are really scared right now. So just let them be who they are and do what they want to do. And if they want to watch Friends for like 5 days, then let them watch Friends for 5 days.
yeah. I think everyone kind of copes in a different way, and we all have some negative ways of coping. And I don't know if that was denial you're talking about. Maybe it was. For me, I had a little bit of denial, and I was, posting all these positive things, and then finally I had like this breakdown, and I was like, oh my gosh, it all suddenly hit me. Like the reality of it came crashing down, and I kind of talked to a lot of my followers about really what's been going on, and it was such a positive response because everyone could relate, and I was like, oh man, okay. I,
Right.
I felt kind of silly, but
Well, I
it takes a lot
as
sometimes.
yeah, and I actually did the same thing. So I was like, you know what? I'm like, guys, I don't have all the answers. In fact, I don't have any answers for you, but I know ways to help you get those answers for yourself. But so in regards to me telling you to do something, just tell me to pound sand. Do whatever the hell you want. Whatever you need to do to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So what led you to doing what you do now? How did your whole path start? Has this been something you've always wanted to do, or did you, like many people have, do this, do this, do this, and then you're like, that's what I want to do?
Yeah, definitely. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I went to school. My background is in sociology, didn't use that degree. I mean, I guess you use that all the time,
Right.
but specifically, I didn't use it for work. I actually had Lyme disease and arthritis for about half of my life, and
Wow.
so I became a health coach because I needed a health coach, and I didn't know they even existed. And I found this school in New York, and it was all online, so I could still, you know, be in bed if I had to on the days that I didn't feel good. So it was kind of this like rough recovery and like learning curve, and I figured it out and got healthy. Like that was the last year I was still kind of healing.
Right. Right.
So I started out working with people with autoimmune conditions, and then I kind of went into the corporate section of it, working with mostly women, and now I'm doing working with corporations as well. So it's pretty fun to be able to do all of it.
That is awesome. I am very excited to hear my second Lyme disease success story. Because I had a guest today, earlier today at 12 o'clock, and he was talking about his journey and how it started pretty much with the exact same thing. He was with his wife at Disney World, and his foot was kind of dropping. He wasn't, and he didn't know what it was, so he went to a doctor, and the doctor said, "You have ALS, and you got 6 months to live." And he's like, "Yeah, exactly." So he's like, "No, that can't be it." So he basically just kept persevering and found another doctor and said, "No, that's not it at all. You've got Lyme disease," and obviously treated that, and he's right as rain. But to that point, it led him to where he is today, which is awesome. So I love hearing these Lyme disease success stories.
It's an intense one, you know, it's one of the most complex diseases, and it really, everyone that I've ever worked with, myself included, we all have these like emotional things we have to work out to get
Right.
healthy. It's like just part of it for some reason.
Well, the thing that amazes me about it is how varied it is, how it can be neurologically debilitating for some people. And for other people, it might just manifest as not just, but fatigue and muscle aches. And so it's like all over the place. It's not like just, for some people, it's really minimal. And for some people, it's like absolutely devastating.
It's wild how varied it is with the symptoms, and it also makes it that much more confusing to the patients and doctors.
Right, exactly. Because
What
right,
is
because
it? Yeah,
yeah, exactly. There's no one size fits all um, course of events or course of treatment.
right, absolutely.
So if you've gone, so did you start off in with holistic health and then kind of expanded into corporate wellness, or is the corporate wellness just a larger kind of conglomeration of individual holistic health?
Yeah, I started just one-on-one with more just the yeah, focusing on holistic health, a lot of autoimmune clients, and then I had a client that had had an autoimmune disease, had Lyme, but she was in the corporate world, and I just realized how coachable she was, because a lot of clients that are still really sick, you know, they're definitely coachable, but they're really struggling, and it's just a different kind of coaching relationship. So it's
Right.
really like hands-on, all in, building a team of practitioners as well as myself, and I love doing that, but I was really inspired by her being able to do both. I'm like, you have a garden, you work at Intel, you're just like a badass, and she just really inspired me, and I
Nice.
wanted to kind of continue working with those kind of people. I love it when things like that with work kind of just organically happen. I don't ever like to force anything, so
Right.
I was happy that that all kind of came together that way.
Nice. So, what is the process for bettering a corporation? Like, what are like the kind of the steps going in there, and like, how do you kind of get an idea of what they need and then bring them to that finishing point? If you can give us a brief Reader's Digest of that.
Yeah, it really depends on the company. Just like my with my one-on-one clients, I don't believe in like a one size fits all.
Nice.
We have a, yeah, I mean, like that's just like what,
How
it just
could you?
doesn't work. No, uh, every corporation has kind of a different I don't know, community. They attract different kinds of people. And so I really try to cater to that. Like, well, what are your goals? And so we have a consultation and just figure out like what the main things they want to focus on are. And it often is helping people manage stress.
Nice.
And getting a little more active and realizing that, you know, being active is actually going to help them manage stress. And right now I'm working with people on also like building that community back together. So we do Zoom calls like this since I can't go into the corporations.
Right.
So people still feel like they get the face to face with me, but also the other employees. So it's been pretty fun to see everyone's like, you know, work from home environments are, they're crazy like, Zoom backgrounds, and
Exactly.
it's cool. Yeah, get a little peek inside their world.
What's so funny, I find from a Zoom standpoint that like all the people that I work with, we go on our staff meetings and I look at the backgrounds. I'm like, I wonder if their life is really like that, or if they just carved out a little part of their home and the rest of the house looks like a tornado.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, you know.
I'm like a total neat freak, but like this is minimalist decor, obviously. But I'm like this is the only spot I'm like, yeah, no. The rest of it is either dark or it's like I don't
Oh,
want to fold my clothes.
oh yeah, that's also real. I think when so you normally work from home?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Right. So I do too, and I've been talking to other people that do too, and I've noticed that I never really felt like I worked from home until now, because I would go to a cafe to break up the day sometimes, or,
Right.
you know, go to my like bar 3 class, and then I'd come home and be like, okay, let's go. I got this. And now I'm like, okay, going on my run and doing my virtual yoga. And it's just not the same. And a lot of people I've talked to, they're like, man, I feel the same way. It's just, you don't have that community, even if you're
Right.
not that social. Those people are even missing it. So
Yeah. And I have a feeling that I would imagine that you're a pretty social person, correct?
it really depends. I've actually learned that I really enjoy my alone time
Nice.
because I've been on so many like screens, and it's kind of nice. Like, you know, getting out in nature, or like walking my dog or whatever. I mean, it's super simple. Even just laying in my hammock, I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it. But I do miss the social aspect. I can't, I'm not an introvert for sure.
No, yeah, no, but I totally understand what you're saying because I'm 50-50. Like, I love people and I love talking with people, helping people. But every now and then I'm just like, you know what? I think I just want to be by myself. In fact, my favorite time of the day, and any Zen Commuter listener will know this, is first thing in the morning, like 5:30, 6 o'clock, going for a
Yeah.
walk out in the woods, then meditating.
Good for you. That's
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but have you found it difficult transitioning from pre-COVID to COVID with your business?
Yeah. I would say I'm working a lot more now,
Oh, it's
which
awesome.
is good. But so that transition has been hard, especially working from home. So I'm like, okay, gonna get the standing desk set up, and just making everything more like ergonomical. I actually just sit on a yoga ball. I don't like
Oh,
sitting in
nice.
chairs, and I just feel better. I'm like, I'm just gonna work my core all day.
Oh, you know what? I should probably wheel that because I've got a standing desk and I've got a physio ball. I'm like, we just wheel that baby over here.
You know, I haven't gotten into the standing desk yet. I feel weird. I might actually. I'm not sure I'm going to keep it, but we'll see. I think you just have to kind of keep trying it out and experimenting with different heights or whatever. But
Right. And the other thing too is to know that it's only part of the equation. It's like when I first started like a couple of years ago, I'm like, I hear sitting's like not the coolest thing. So I'm like, I'm going to make sure that I am not sitting all day like I used to do when I worked at Fidelity. So I did the exact opposite with the other extreme and was standing all the time. And then I started getting like these tingling in my legs, and I'm like,
oh, shoot.
so yes, I went to the doctor. I'm like, what is this? He's like, do you work out? I'm like, yeah, I like exercise all the time. He's like, do you, what do you do for work? I'm like, well, I'm an entrepreneur. And he's like, do you stand a lot? I'm like, and I was like, I'm like, yeah, I kind of stand all day. He's like, don't.
Don't do that. Yeah. Well, actually, that's what I was thinking, because I think if you stand a lot, it can be hard on your body. Just like sitting can be hard on your body. So that's why
Right.
I was, oh, the yoga ball is good, less pressure. And it's way less pressure on your body if you are standing. But I think it's a balance. And I think it's really personal too. You know, you just
Right.
to
So
try it
yeah,
out.
50-50. Yeah, like you say, sit on that ball, stand, and I think I'll. So thank you for that tip. I'm like, yeah, I'm sitting right now, but the exact opposite when I was here, when I was doing Zen Commuter before I joined with the fishing partnership, I had my own schedule, and I'm like, if I started to feel a little, I'm like, I just want to get out. I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna go to the store, and I wasn't sitting. But then when I was, with the fishing partnership here, and when I go into the office, sometimes it's just like sitting my butt on a desk at a desk for like 8 hours. I'm like, ugh, like I'm disgusted with me.
You get so sore. And then sometimes, I mean, have you ever gotten so sore that you don't even really want to stretch or do yoga? You're like, oh man, you're
Absolutely.
tired. And so I figured out a lot of solutions for these things over the last few
I can absolutely
months.
imagine. And to your point, I know that like if I wake up and I'm like haven't had the best night's sleep and my body's like kind of like, oh
Oh yeah.
God, I'm like, get on your walk. You know the second you start moving, your body's gonna be like, okay, cool, we got this now.
Yes. Yes. Movement is medicine always. Like,
Yeah.
duh. But sometimes
Yeah.
it takes us like starting it
Right.
to actually realize, like, oh yeah, that
And
was
it's counterintuitive because you're like, God, my back just hurts, my knees hurt. I'm like, I don't want to move. But like that's
yeah,
exactly what you need.
exactly. Yeah. Agreed.
So when you go looking for, well, do you go looking for clients for your business, or do they come to you, or which is more prevalent that you need to kind of like suss people out, like, hey, this is what I do, or do they say, hey, I heard about what you do,
Yeah.
can we meet?
So I would say it's both. For one-on-one, often people find me because it's very referral based. I don't think I've ever advertised for that.
Nice.
So that's always nice because a lot of people that have had autoimmune diseases or they want to really focus on their health, they're talking to other people and they're friends with other people that are, you know, doing the same things. So that's easy for that.
Right.
I always appreciate referrals. And then for corporations, I would say I have been kind of getting my own clients, but
Right.
sometimes like people will be like, oh, I know you're doing this now, so maybe talk to this person, and or I know this person here. So it's a lot of like networking, and it's been a really fun process, kind of figuring out like the kinds of corporations that I want to work with, and
Right.
because they're all so different, and the culture really does make a big difference. And you obviously don't want to work with all of them. Want to be particular, I think, for sure.
Yeah, isn't it awesome when you get to that point where you're like, oh, we want you. I'm like, I don't know if we'd be the best fit for each other.
Yeah, that's real.
Oh, it's totally real.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
sure you remember when you first started out, you're like, anybody, I don't care. I
Oh,
don't
right.
care.
Like, yeah, I'll take anyone. No, gosh. Um, well, because it's true. It isn't. You're not gonna be a good fit for everyone, and so I always
Right.
say that when I do a consultation because you might see things differently or whatever.
Right, exactly. And I mean, you also know too that with some people, their viewpoint will impact their um, ability to grow, meaning that
Oh
they
yeah.
might not have a growth mindset. So, regardless of what you do, even if you show them that they're like getting healthier, they're, whether it be losing weight, more active, whatever, and they just don't see it, because of their mindset. So,
Right, right. Yeah, I was just talking about that yesterday to one of my corporations about how our brains are hardwired to be negative. And so I was talking about limiting things that are negative, like maybe it's news, maybe it's social media, maybe it's people. And we always, I mean, we know that we have the ability to make those decisions and limit those things. But I think a lot of people in our society don't really fully get that
right,
because they haven't been brought up that way. And I
right,
was. So,
right. So was I.
yeah, so it's so different. It's like everyone's backgrounds. I think it's so easy to judge right away because I mean, it's kind of human nature to do that.
Right.
Or like, I don't judge. I'm like, yeah, you do. You're
Yeah, you
human,
do. I
right?
do.
Right? We all do. But I think just giving people a little bit more grace, especially right now, I think is so important because I've gotten frustrated. So many people I've been talking to have been frustrated. And like, just people are angry and scared. And there's just like all the emotions and anxious. And so it's like when those kind of build up and like one thing leads to another and someone's had like a bad day, it's like, whoa,
Oh,
I think,
yeah.
I don't know, driving right now, I'm like, woo, there's some road rage. And so I think just giving everyone a little bit more grace, and ourselves, I think that's important too.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important as well. Making sure that we feel good about ourselves and are taking the appropriate self-care
Yeah.
tool. Like, what do you do? What do you suggest to people for self-care, and what do you do for self-care?
Mm. Well, right now, I would say there's a lot of things that we can do that are really small. And right now, I'm not about the big stuff. I'm really never about the big stuff right off the bat. I think it's
Right.
really good to do like the bite-sized pieces. And I think when people hear that, they're like, well, that's not going to do anything. But it's like, well, those are the only things that are going to stick and be sustainable. And
Right.
I'm really about sustainable change. So I like to focus on things like, obviously being more mindful, that's important. But really like, well, what the heck does that mean? Well, for me, I really love breath work. That for me is super helpful. I like guided meditations a lot. Uh,
Nice.
I grew up with a Buddhist mom. Like I mean, obviously she didn't start off that way, but
Right.
she was a total hippie, and then she found meditation, and now she teaches meditation. She travels all over the world. Well, not all over the world, but she travels quite a bit and teaches
Right.
it with her meditation teacher. And there's like a temple on Whidbey now. It's so cool. So I actually did a quick interview, like text interview with her yesterday. And
Oh,
she was
neat.
like so touched by it. She was like, because I, for the longest time, was so against meditation because she gave me like, my name is Rainbow Goddess in like, I don't know exactly how you pronounce it, but like that was my name. And I was like, oh my God, what the heck, Mom? Like, why do you have to be so weird? And so I kind of went the other direction. I was like, I'm not going to do this holistic stuff, and I'm not going to do this like Buddhist woo woo. Like, it's just too much.
Right.
And then when I started coaching, I realized that it's really important to focus on those things. And I just kind of had to find it my own way.
Right.
And so for me, like I was very fitness oriented until I got sick and I couldn't run anymore. So then my goal was like, okay, I'm going to run a marathon. What the heck? Are you serious?
I was just gonna say,
I'm
I'm gonna go from being crippled in my bed to running a marathon.
Yeah, but I did it. It took me
Nice.
2 years, but I did it. And so for me, sometimes it's like a moving meditation.
Mm.
And when I was running the marathon, I would like talk to my grandma. She had passed away, and I was like, so that's like, to me, that's, I'm not super religious. I consider myself more spiritual.
Right.
But I'd like look up and talk to my grandma and be like, just like give me strength to get through this. Like, come on, just like, what do I do? And I would just talk to her. And so I think everyone kind of has to find their own path, but those ways of kind of reducing stress and anxiety are things that I have my clients do. And and it really just depends on their level. We kind of check in and see like where they're at, because I want it to work for them.
Right. Oh, yeah. And you got to find out what works for them.
Right. So those things are super super helpful, and can take a while for people to implement because sometimes
Right.
they don't know what's going to work. I really like box breathing. That's what I teach my corporate clients. But personally, I like Wim Hof. I like his style.
Right.
The ice bath, whoo, that's a little tough. But the first class I went to in person before the coronavirus started
Right.
was just like so life changing. I heard things. I mean, I don't know if do you know about Wim Hof that much?
Yep.
Okay, so I heard like you are the master of your own destiny, and I heard something else. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think I wrote it down, but I was like, what just happened during this class? Like it was just like, okay. And it kind of like put me on this trajectory of like, okay, I'm going to experiment with all these things. And it kind of put me on a different career path and personally as well. So
Right.
those things have been super helpful.
Well, it's funny. Yesterday, I think it was probably like a year ago, before I was working with the fishing partnership, when I was just Zen Commuter and I had plenty of time, I'd go for my walks and I'd take a cold shower when I got back.
Oh.
And it was, for the first couple, it was like, as you might expect, I'm like, why am I doing this?
Like a little screaming sometimes, like, ah, oh my God,
Exactly.
horrible.
So, but then when I thought about it from a mindfulness standpoint, it became much easier. So, I have one of those big rain shower, the
Oh, the
big
shower.
thing. Yeah,
Mm.
the big, right, the shower head. It's like massive. So, um, when the water came on, I was like staring at there, probably like 50 jets,
Oh no.
and the water came out, and I'm just like looking at one of them. I'm like, just focus on that. Just focus on that. Just focus on that. And the water hit me, and I'm like, it's cold. Like, don't buy into that reaction. Don't buy into that discomfort. Just look. Just look. And after that, it was just like, okay, here we go. And it was just like, it's nothing now. So I actually, for the first time in a long time, I took one yesterday, and I was just like, the exact same thing. The first thing was like, whoa, Jesus.
Yeah,
And I
totally.
just zeroed right back in. I'm like, cool. Breath, look, focus, don't buy into the reaction. Don't buy into the reaction. And it was awesome.
Okay. I like that method. I
Yeah.
am really good at holding my breath when I do that. So that's
Right.
a good way to think about it, and like staring at something specific. That's good tips. I like that.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I don't think I'm Wim Hof ready, so I'm like going to jump into a pool of ice cubes quite yet. I don't know if my focus is that strong.
You got to start out slow.
Yeah.
I
Baby
remember,
steps.
yeah, I remember doing it the first time and being like, wow, why am I doing this? But that's why I did it, because I knew it was going to be challenging. So
Right.
for me, learning, like remembering to not have that perfectionist mindset come in and take over is super helpful. So doing stuff like that is very humbling
Oh,
for me.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Where do you think that perfectionist mindset comes from? Because I'm not a perfectionist. I mean, I like things. I'm pretty retentive at some level, but
Yeah.
I'm thankfully that as an entrepreneur, I've never been one of those people. I'm like, this isn't being launched until it's absolutely perfect. This book isn't going out until it's flawless. I'm like, you know what? It goes. I'm gonna give it my best shot. But I've never been a perfectionist. Have you met people like that? And if so, where do you think that comes from?
I think a lot of it is childhood. Um,
Right.
yeah, and for me, that's what it was. And it's not always there, but yeah, a lot of times when I'm working with clients and I can tell they're like making excuses, and I'm like, oh, you're trying to do the perfectionist thing. I know that because I do it too.
Right.
And it's like, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it never will be.
Right.
So whenever I'm working with, well, like one-on-one, but also my group clients for corporations, I'm always like, okay, it's progress, you guys. Progress, not perfection. Like perfection, just forget about it. It's not going to
Right.
happen. It's off the table. So like, what are we going to do right now?
Right. And I think a lot of things buy into, speaking sociologically, that we buy into that everybody expects me to have this to be perfect, when the reality is nobody really gives a shit.
It's so true, right? I mean, people are way more concerned about themselves than you, right?
Right. Yep.
But I also think it's a society thing, especially in our country. Um, we're just so focused on go, 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 do, and it
Right.
needs to be a certain way because we create these ridiculous standards that aren't always even attainable.
Right.
Like, all right,
And they're
like,
very process oriented, just like you said. It's like, okay, here's step A, step B, step C. This is where you start, this is where you got to end. And obviously, from a meditation standpoint, when I'm teaching people, I'm like, that just forget that. That doesn't
right,
exist.
right.
You're never going to be the best meditation person. I'm not, and nobody is, because that's not what it's about.
No, exactly, exactly.
So when you go into a corporation, like, well, tell me this: what do you have one success story with a corporation, like one of your clients, and you're like, oh, I went in there and they were the absolute best, or I went in there and they were a nightmare, and then we worked through stuff and came out the other side better. What's
Mhm.
one success story you can tell us?
Let me think. Usually I kind of look at everyone more as a whole rather than being like, oh, I can tell. But I mean, sometimes it's usually like people's mindset that changes that I
Right.
notice. And often there's some sort of like, it's almost like a mental block. You can just kind of see it in their eyes, or they like glaze over when you start talking about eating healthy or exercise or breath work or whatever. And you're like, ooh. So I really do pay attention to those things when I see that. And I mean, eye contact is big, like how are
Huge.
you actually feeling right now? Like, let's check in. And obviously because I'm coaching as a group, I can't always hone in on each individual if it's a really big group.
Right.
But I do always give people individual support. So if they are struggling or if they're doing really well and they want to like push themselves, we always have that connection, because I mean, it's just important to me. I'm passionate about it and I want everyone to succeed, because
Right.
a lot of it is like we just don't believe, we either don't believe that we're worth it or
Mm.
that we deserve it or that we can do it.
Right.
And so our mind is holding us back. Like, from meditation, it's like, let it go.
Right, exactly. And I'm pretty much driven the exact same way when it comes to meditation. I'm like, because there's so many times I meet people where, uh, judgment aside, that their self-esteem is just so low that they don't think that they're worthy of calm, of peace, of a life that's meaningful. And to
Yeah.
your other point, like, I couldn't do that. I'm like, and I definitely, when I was a personal trainer, I used to love getting clients who are like, I can't do that. I'm like, do you trust me? I'm like, I'm not going to do anything to hurt you. I know. I'm like, at the
Right.
risk of sounding boastful, I'm like, I've been doing this a while. I know what people can do and what they can't. So
Right.
I'm right here next to you. Let's give this a try. Try doing this. Like,
Right.
okay, I got this. And then right to your point, as you go through those small steps, you get to the point where they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I'm like, oh, and I'm like, that's so awesome. I love that.
Very rewarding, isn't it?
Oh, it's so rewarding.
It's really cool to see. I love to see people jump over those hurdles and then jump over more, right? Because
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of times too, it's what's the end game. People are like, well, I don't know. I mean, like, if I achieve that, then like, what am I going to have to do next? And they just kind of go down these rabbit holes, and it's like, oh my gosh, you're capable of like anything you set your mind to. So like, where's the limit? Like,
Right.
you
And
know.
I love it when people clear that first hurdle. And to your point, they clear that first hurdle, and then that was like a kind of a log jam. Like they like
Like,
once they got through that, they're like, I am invincible. I can do anything. And they go on to run a marathon. They go on to
yeah,
like do a Spartan race. I'm like, you rock. That is awesome.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, and then there's like those self-limiting beliefs, or there's those things that like get ingrained as probably from childhood, honestly, or even as a young adult. People tell them things that like you could never do that, or you would never be able to do this because blah blah blah, and then they start believing those things, and so those things get ingrained. And so there's always things we have to help people work through, and I'm sure you've done that with meditation too, and as a trainer. That's so cool.
Oh yeah, and I've real quick story. When I was in high school, I was not an athletic guy. So I'm like, if I want to get into college, I got to do some other things because I'm a spaz and I can't do baseball, football, basketball, any of that stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I was student government and I was acting, and I was really good at acting. But then we had the musical come up, and I said, well, I don't even know if I know how to sing. So I did this. I auditioned and I sung this piece, and like all my friends were like, "Dude, you are an awesome actor, but you are the worst singer ever." And I was just like traumatized. I was like, "Well, I will never do that again." And then for most of my life, I'm like, "Oh no, singing, that's just not it." I'm like, "You just better do it in the shower and in the car." And then about I'd say about 5 years ago, I was in the shower, I was singing. I'm like, I do not sing that badly. I'm like,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
so I hired a voice coach and
Oh, no
took,
way.
yeah, I took voice lessons, and then the rest is history. I did a couple recitals, and people would come up to me like, "Your voice is so beautiful." I'm like, "Oh, you are so kind." I'm like, "Where were you 30 years ago?"
Right? Oh, that is so cool. That's
Yeah,
so cool. That's awesome when you get to overcome those things. For me, it was like being on stage as a kid. I grew up playing violin, but they never had me talk. So once I had to get in front of people, I'd be like, like I just would kind of glaze over and like freeze, deer in the headlights. And
right,
so it was good to be like, okay, I can actually talk to people or in front of people or whatever. It's like not a big deal.
right, right. How long did you play violin for?
Oh my gosh, I started at 4 and then I did it until like, end of high school basically.
Nice. Me too.
You did? What kind? Like what style?
So I was part of the orchestra, just basic classical violin. I started when I was 8 and went through went into high school. So,
Did you
and
start
then,
with Suzuki?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Me too. Yeah. Very cool. God, those violins sounded bad. So squeaky.
Yeah,
Like they're
exactly.
that young. Like they're that
Exactly.
young, this big. Yeah.
But I totally have a desire to go back to it, to just pick it up again. Do you ever have any desire to do the same thing?
So I have one in my closet right over here, and
Oh,
I pick it up every so often. So I switched to Irish fiddle later,
oh wow.
and because there was no like orchestra where I grew up,
Hmm.
and so I remember being in the community orchestra and like memorizing sheets of music because I didn't know how to read music yet because Suzuki is like all by ear.
Right.
And freshman year, I taught myself how to read music like in the band room, and the band teacher was like, "Sure, I guess you can do that." And I, whatever, I don't care. I was like, "Okay," but I had this amazing Irish fiddle teacher that I would like drive, like take the ferry, drive to Seattle, and go there. And he was just great. We were buddies. And then when I moved, I just really missed that connection, you know. And of course, I could have found people to play with, but I think I was just kind of scared to play with other
Right.
people or something. I don't know, but I miss it. It's almost like a different type of meditation. Would you say?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I haven't played it in a long time, but yeah, my dad and I go to the symphony, or did go, and we'll go again, I'm sure, obviously, all the time. And just to see people like that do that for life, I'm like, wow. And to your point, you can see them living the music. It's not just rote. They're just not like, it is something that's coming through them, and it's just like so awesome to see, and obviously to hear. You're like, oh, I cannot believe that somebody is that good.
It's amazing. Yeah, there's a few really good Irish fiddle players based in Portland. So sometimes I'll go to a pub here and just listen for a few hours. You just kind of like get immersed. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, and I would imagine that Irish fiddle is just like there's a lot to it. I mean, there's a lot to classical, obviously, as well, but the speed at which people are playing Irish fiddle, I mean, it's not a lot of lilting stuff. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's pretty energetic stuff, correct?
Definitely. My idol though, when I was like just getting into Irish, and I guess he still probably would be if I still played. His name's Martin Hayes, and he like slows it way down.
Oh no way.
Listen, look him up when we get off. It. I used to listen to him if I was in traffic, and he would calm me down so much. And be like, this is great. And he's just one of those amazing people. He's actually from Ireland. And so when I was in sixth grade, I went to Ireland with my dad. And my name's spelled Kerry, and there's like a county Kerry in Ireland. And so I learned each county in Ireland has a different specific style. So I learned the Kerry style, and Martin Hayes was teaching at this camp. But of course, I didn't do his style because he wasn't doing the Kerry style. But it
It
was
was
so,
cork.
yeah. I think it was Claire or something. Anyway, so cool though.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Is Ireland as beautiful as everybody says it is?
Oh my gosh, it is like a magical place. It is
Wow.
so beautiful. I remember being so it was mostly Southwest Ireland that I went to. So County Cork, County Clare. I went to Dublin as well. But you can just get the most amazing. Well, I ate gluten there then. I don't now, but you can get like scones and little like sandwiches, tea shop sandwiches, and I mean, I definitely gained weight when I was there, but it was totally worth it. And you get to go on these like tours of castles, and you see sheep blocking the road, but you don't even care because you just want to stop and like take a picture. And
Right, right.
life is just seemed a little slower.
Nice.
Everything, all the kids, high school kids, would turn the signs around, so you'd like drive around in circles, and we're like, okay, we've been here for a while. But it was totally beautiful.
Oh,
I mean,
that's awesome. When air travel is a thing again, I can't wait to go.
oh gosh, highly recommend. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So you had said that originally you were not a big meditator because of
Mhm.
your very
Yeah,
your hippie mom.
yeah, totally.
So I would imagine she taught you how to meditate, correct?
She actually didn't.
Oh, no way.
No, she didn't. We went to some teachings. And so her teachers would try to get me and all of my friends to meditate, and we'd be like, "Are you guys doing this?" you know?
Check, please.
Well, we would kind of sit there and try. They're like, listen to the sound of the bell. And we'd be like, okay, we're going to try. But as a kid, it was pretty challenging and not very appealing. We didn't really get the payoff,
Right, right.
except like the cookies at the end or whatever they gave us. We're like, oh, you're going to bribe us. Okay. But yeah, no, she never taught me how to meditate. And I actually had a real big issue with it for a long time because me and my mom weren't like, we kind of had a tough relationship for a long time. So I like associated meditation with her. And I'm like, I'm never going to do that.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
I worked through that and we worked through our relationship. I just kind of found it on my own. And I really still do guided meditations, or I'll just kind of do it on my own, but it's no specific like training like or style.
Right, right. So would it be safe to say that you do or do not teach it to your corporate wellness clients or your holistic health people?
I sometimes do. A lot of times I do breath work. I notice people that are very action oriented sometimes have a hard time sitting for very long.
Right,
So those are sometimes or often the people that need it the most.
right.
I'm a very action oriented person, and so it is hard for me to sit still. But that's usually when I'm like, ooh, maybe I should meditate.
The times, right, the times you're the most frantic are the times you need it the most.
Yeah. I'm actually getting ready to put one together for Nike, and so we're going to do breath work, and then we're going to do meditation because they do have a mindfulness community, but they're athletes, and so I
Right.
think a lot of people are curious, but they're like, well, I don't know, like it can be a little intimidating.
Oh,
So I'm
absolutely.
really
Well,
excited.
yep. It's funny because I hear that a lot, obviously, that
I
meditation is
sure.
intimidating. Um,
Yeah.
and one of my goals, obviously, is to make it totally obtainable for everybody, so
Yeah.
that people can understand that. Because I think a lot of people, one of the hugest hurdles is people think, well, it's something that some people know how to do and some people can do it. I
Yep.
can't do it
Yep.
because, to your point, I'm like, I can't sit down, I can't quiet my mind.
Mhm.
I'm not a monk in the
Sure.
Himalayas. I'm like, that's the people that do it. I can't do that. I'm like, okay, well, let's just try something.
Sure. That's
And to your point, baby steps. You're like,
yeah.
uh, with anything. I mean, whether it be meditation, whether it be working out, I'm like, you got to get that momentum started, and you can't do that by saying, I'm going to work out every day for an hour. Like, really? When was the last time you did that? Never. I'm like, okay, so that's kind of what we call a setup for a failure.
Exactly. And or like being really rigid about it. That's how I used to be with everything. I'm like, I'm all or nothing. And it's just like that doesn't work. It's not sustainable.
Right.
So that's a really great approach to take. That's awesome.
Just
Little pieces. Yep.
exactly. So, what is your meditation practice now? Is it consistent? Is it like as needed? Is it walking?
It is all over the place. So not like scattered like all over the place, but it just varies is what I mean.
Right, right,
So sometimes I'm like, okay, today I'm gonna do Wim Hof. Or today I'm gonna go run in Forest Park, which is like this amazing park in Portland. It's like you're in the woods basically.
nice.
And I sometimes will focus on my breath when I'm doing that, or I'll just breathe through my nose. I'm like super into breath work, so I know a lot about like a lot of different styles. So it's really
Right.
a good way to do it. Sometimes when I'm walking my dog, I'll do like box breathing, or I'll sit down and do just depends on what kind of meditation. Sometimes I'll lay down, sometimes I'll sit down. Like I keep it open. I notice with me, if I put myself in a box, it's not going to work.
Right,
I'm
right,
not there yet, like doing a like guide or an unguided meditation on a daily basis.
right.
And I don't know if I ever will be. I might, and I really respect people that do that. But I don't know. I'm not quite there yet.
Well, I tell people, I'm like, if that's much to your point, you got to find where people are. So
Sure.
for me, I'm the same way. I'm like, for people to think about doing something for the rest of their life is overwhelming.
Sure.
Um,
Oh yeah.
uh, but I tell them, I'm like, so you can't do what, or it's not going to be serving for you to do the same thing every day. So to your point,
Mm.
sometimes I'll be totally unguided. I'm just like, I'm just going to sit and see what comes up. Other times I'll fire up Insight Timer and get one of my peers to lead me through a guided meditation.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll just do a walking meditation where I'm in the woods. And so to keep things fresh, because yeah, if you did the same thing day in and day out for the rest of your life.
Right. Well, that's cool to hear. My mom was telling me she was doing someone else's meditation. She's so used to teaching.
Right.
But I think when she follows someone else, it can be challenging. And so I was like, well, why don't you tell me about that? Like, why was it challenging? And then I said, were you not teaching it? Is that why? She was like, well, yeah. My mind kept going somewhere else. And I was like, oh, it kind of made me feel like, oh, I could actually do that, because if you've been doing this for this long and you had a hard time doing it,
Right.
it just felt better. I felt better. Like, ooh, okay, pressure's
Yeah.
off.
And that totally works for me with my clients as well, because I've been meditating for 35 years now. And so when I tell them, like, I'm like, oh, my meditation was, I don't know, my brain was a little more active than usual. Like, what does that mean? That means I was thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner. That means I was playing a scene from Star Trek that I watched the night before. That means I was like, that does not happen to you. I'm like, yes, of course it does.
Absolutely.
And to that point, they're like, oh, thank God. I thought that like that happened just to me. And like somebody that meditated, that would never happen to me. I'm like, no, I just know that no matter how many times it takes to refocus, to bring your attention back to your breath, is how long it takes. Sometimes, most times, it's just like a couple times, like, well, that's weird. Okay, back to breath. That's weird. Back to breath. And then I'm in the space. And other times it's like,
Right.
back to breath. Back to breath. Back to breath. I'm like, okay, we got this. It's all good. It's all good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that human aspect is so important. And when you can share something like personal or vulnerable, people are like, oh, yeah, me too. Like, oh, people just want to relate, you know?
Oh yeah, vulnerability is and like transparency is everything.
Oh, God.
Um, I remember when I was starting out being an entrepreneur, I follow these people like this is how I did it, and like basically I said now I'm making this much money, I've got this many people follow me, and they never talked about the times where they're like this sucks, I'm never gonna make this. I'm like I'm just gonna throw it in the freaking toilet. It's not gonna work.
Mm,
They just showed all the like the highlight reels, and so I'm like for those people, obviously I'm like yeah, you know what, I can't relate to you. I'm like you like A, you're probably all about ego, and B, you're not telling me that like the real stuff. So
totally. Well, and I think that's a big problem right now for people, especially specifically right now, is because social media is taken over so much, and
right.
people are comparing themselves so much. And almost hear it on a daily basis now. Well, so
Oh
and
yeah.
so was doing this or whatever, and I saw them in this relationship and that, and it's like, oh gosh, you guys, do you know how much of this is probably like not real, or they got in some huge fight before this happened, or they're actually really unhappy but they look good? It's like, let it all go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a lesson that came to me a long time ago. It's like people will never tell you the struggles that they're having. Some people will, obviously, like we're saying, that are totally transparent and open and vulnerable. But the majority of people are like, nope. Like you said, social media is all about, look at this. This is my life. And then they're backstage, are like, oh God, she's going to leave me. Or I'm like, I can't believe my dad's like really sick. Or, everybody's just like showing you what they want or what they think you want. And that's the good thing about meditation is it helps us cut through all that, not just in our own lives, but when we're out in the world, when you're coming from a stillness perspective, you can see things a lot more clearly. You can see like, okay, that guy, he's saying everything's cool, but my gut says he's really hurting, or there's a lot of fear in there. So you can definitely see those veneers slip away when you have a meditation practice, or at least that's what it is for me. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
so if you've been meditating for, how long have you been meditating for, would you say?
I don't even know the answer to that, to be honest. I think it's I
Which
feel
is
like
cool.
it's been, I guess, long enough. I mean, it's been maybe 5 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Maybe. I don't even know. Maybe a little less. It probably started around though when I started coaching, I'm assuming. Yeah, I was sick for so long that like there's portions of my memory from then that they're kind of not there, and so
Right.
I definitely wasn't meditating then.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I would imagine that was a challenge or would have
yeah,
been a
I'm
challenge.
sure it would have helped me, but yeah, yeah, it's been a little bit, not a super long time. I'm still figuring it all out, but I've noticed in stressful situations, I'm much better at not always staying calm, but being able to like think a little bit more clearly than I had before I started
Right.
meditating. And so it's cool to see the benefits. And I actually look forward to doing my meditations or my breath work now. And before I'd be like, oh, I have to meditate. So it's a good sign.
Right. Exactly. Well, to your point, our culture here in the West is so driven to just move, to act, to do, to produce. So when we don't know how much we're being impacted by society when just when we step out in the world, everything you see on TV or just in general, it says produce. Even when you go to work,
Yeah.
like this is your project, this is where it's got to be. This is your merit increase is based on this. So everything in our society says do, produce, produce. So if
Right.
you're pretty much just sitting there, people are like, A, that's a waste of time, and B, we're just not used to it. Like, I should be doing something. I'm just sitting here. I should be doing something, which that's going to sabotage a meditation practice pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah. I think that's why sometimes I'll have people like set a timer in the beginning if they aren't doing a guided meditation. So they don't
Right.
have to keep looking like, well, what time is it? How much time is left?
I literally start people at it 1 minute. 1 minute.
That's so good. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was going to say to your point, they just like 1 minute's not going to do anything. I'm like, oh yes, it is. A, you're gonna accomplish it, and whether you acknowledge it in your conscious mind or not, you're going to say, cool, I did it.
Right.
I did it for 1 minute, and then we do that for like a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on their level of anxiousness, and then move on to 2, on to 3, and then before long, they're sitting down for as long as they want to.
Yeah. That's so great. I've heard people do that with certain things for types of workouts too. They're like, well, I have them work out for 1 minute. And I'm like, really? But it does work. I have my clients start off with a little bit more than that usually, but
Right.
not for meditation, for working out, but
Right.
like starting out with like, okay, let's do a 10-minute walk or a 5-minute walk. I guess you could do a 1-minute walk, but usually you want to at least go around the block or something.
Yeah, but I'm sure you're aware too that when dealing with clients, we have to kind of find out where they're at. One of the things I like about meditation is it takes a lot of ego out of it. So,
Oh yeah.
I come to each meditation instructor, and when I was a personal trainer as well, I'm like, this person is not you. They have
Yeah.
whether they might, you, Tom, love going to the gym. You go to the gym 5 times a week, 6 times a week, and you love it. You get to hang out with your friends. You get, workouts. But to somebody who is like really overweight, the gym is the scariest place in the world. So I remember meeting somebody and at the supermarket, and we struck up a conversation. She's like, I really need to go to the gym. I'm like, I work at Best Fitness. You just come see me. She's like, I don't know if I could ever go there. So I gave her my number. I said, call me. If you want to go there, I'll get you there. And she's like, it's just so scary. I'm like, I tell you what, tomorrow, just drive by.
That's real. That's awesome.
She's like,
Yeah,
just
baby
drive by?
steps.
Like, yep, just drive by. And we totally went from drive by to stop in the parking lot. And just like you said, like the smallest steps. And obviously she became a client and she did amazing things.
Cool. Yeah, I have some clients that just want to work out at home, and sometimes it's the fear, but it's sometimes the time. Like people, they don't want to drive to the gym and
Oh
work
yeah.
out and shower and then drive back. And they're usually people that don't want to work out as long either. So we start out small and work our way up, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I just did 30 minutes of whatever dance or this yoga. And I'm like, yeah, like, it takes a while to build it up. But I've also noticed a lot of times it's really the confidence.
Right.
Fear.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, you work through the fear and then you build up the confidence. And it's like, now you're unstoppable, man. Like, it's not just going to help you with like, the meditation or the workout or whatever you're trying to achieve. It's like, it's going to carry over to all these other aspects of your life. And that's what I love about the holistic approach. It's not just one area. And so when I first started, I would have such a hard time explaining what I did. They'd be like, what do you do? So, and I think a lot of coaches struggle with that because holistic it's not new, but it's new to a lot of people.
Right, exactly. It's
Yeah.
coming from that framework, like you said. You have to, like, if somebody doesn't know what holistic is, you could talk to them like for an hour and they still won't know. It's not their reality.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you got to make it approachable for them. So,
Right. Hmm.
but yeah, baby steps. Baby steps will get you there every step of the way, pun intended.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Babies know what's up.
Exactly, exactly. It's so funny because I tell people, I'm like, I used to hate kids. Like, I'd go into supermarkets and I'd be like, whose kid is screaming? I'm like, who's the worst parent ever? Get this kid out of here. Obviously, that was a very long time ago. And now when I see kids, whether they're crying, whether they're screaming, I'm like, oh, your life is going to be awesome. Oh, I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love smelling their heads. Mm, so good. I have a few friends with kids now, and I'm like, I just want to hold your baby. Um, yeah, just and smell your
I just want to huff your kid.
like, it's something special for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, cool. Before we head on out, how can people follow you to keep up with all the things you're doing, whether it be on a personal level, corporate level? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I'm pretty active on social media. So if you just want to follow me on Instagram, it's just at Kerry Mann,
Well, that's
KerryMann.
easy.
It's easy. Yeah, I want to keep it easy. And then for my corporate clients, it is corporatewellness.io. So
Right.
keeping it simple again. And if anyone wants to work with me one-on-one, it's kerrymannwellness.com.
Sweet. Cool, cool, cool. Oh, that's so awesome. I am so excited that we got a chance to talk today.
Me too. I loved coming across your podcast. Like, I love your approach, and I think you make it approachable for people, which I think
Thank you.
it is so necessary and so needed right now, because who doesn't need to meditate and be mindful? Like, everyone needs more of that, I think.
Right. Well, thank you, and I agree. I mean, that's taking that stigma out of it is what I like to do, so that people can see the just like training. It's like I could
Yeah.
never like do that. I could never lift that. I'm like, yeah, you can. We'll get you there. Same with
Right.
meditation now.
I know. I always try to bring humor into my coaching, because I mean, why be so serious? Like, healthy doesn't mean be serious and like grumpy. I mean, it can, but it's a bummer. So
Yeah.
let's have fun.
Yeah. Nothing ever seems serious to me. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. It's like taxes or something, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's probably why I do them very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Like I said, we'll keep in touch because I want to keep our dialogue open with all the great things you're doing.
Yeah, I would love to learn more about what you do as well. So,
Yeah, and even though you've got a mom that's a meditation teacher, if you want to step outside the family arena and get some ideas or thoughts or bounce them off me, by all means, just give me a call and I'll zip you off my phone number so you can just text or give a shout out whenever.
perfect. I would love that.
Yeah, me too. Well, Kerry, I'll let you know when this is going live. It's probably going to be next week, but we'll keep in touch before then, and I look forward to talking to you then.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Bye.
you. You have a great day. Take care.
Bye.